Huge W from Blizzard.
Let's see.
This one I was looking forward to. What went wrong with gaming? Wish with Josh Strife. I really like Josh Strife's videos. He really brings up a lot of thought-provoking topics. So let's take a look.
I love video games. They've been my main hobby for most of my life, and now I make videos about video games, which is great. But recently, I've been analysing new games and critiquing new systems, and I've noticed a slow but insidious trend toward games becoming more and more monetized, but not fairly monetized. Anti-player monetized. It's the feeling you get.
And that's literally what I was just talking about, where the it feels like it's punishing players for not spending money.
When you look at a battle
if that's what he's talking about,
you've already paid full price for. It's the tiny slither of sadness when a game you want has different exclusive levels for different consoles, and you'll know you'll never get to experience.
Oh my god, that was so dumb.
Game now. It's that cosmetic you want, costing 1,005 gems, but the gems are sold in packs of 1,004. It's the knowledge that year on year, microtransactions
that's super frustrating.
from FIFA Ultimate Team alone make more money than Elden Ring's entire sale run. It's the unfortunate reality of gaming after the marketing executive.
Well, you can't really compare FIFA with Elden Ring, because FIFA is pulling out from two communities. It's the gaming community, sports gaming, and just normal people who like sports. Like when I worked in a sports book, like a lot of those guys there like had no interest in like normal video games, but all of them had like Xboxes with their sporting game, and that's all they would play on it.
Took over, and it's hard to explain exactly how or when it changed, but explaining things is what I do. So let's go back to the start of gaming and work out when this whole mess started, and then I'll actually pinpoint the exact thing, the specific design choice which makes new games feel wrong. Welcome, I'm Josh Strife. Let's work out what the hell went wrong with the monetization of gaming. As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube who keep the channel alive. More information on how you can support at the end.
That's so funny that he's going to continue making it smaller and smaller.
Early 1990s. The video game revolution was kicking off, but home consoles weren't yet mainstream, so we went to arcades. You put your money in and played a game, effectively making arcades the socially accepted pay-to-play model. There's no denying arcades were bloody expensive. I remember dropping way more than I should have done to complete Time Crisis, but while this was expensive, there was a very simple relationship between the game, the money, and the player.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Personally, like I didn't really like arcades, and I did everything I could just save up money to buy a console, so I didn't have to go to the arcade anymore.
Money, get access to the whole game. Victory depends on your skill. Game designers knew it was a simple transaction, and they...
Which is funny, because if you think about it, mobile games really took after this. Like you lose, you can watch a video or buy, whatever it is to continue on whatever said run you're on. I didn't even really think about that, but that's like pretty interesting that they took that from the arcade era.
I knew someone would simply play as long as they were able to, so they had to make the game hard so you would die more, and so pay more.
Yep.
This is why the Turtles game had that underwater bit. It's why House of the Dead bosses were damage sponges. It's why Ghosts and Goblins was everything that Ghosts and Goblins is. In the early days of home consoles, when people would rent games, we even called difficult levels blockbuster levels, designed to make the rental period longer, and so you'd have to keep renewing it.
I never heard that term. That's interesting. That's definitely true, though. I think for me, though, if I ever ran into those games, I just stopped playing them. Because I felt like I was like, why waste your time? Like Ghosts and Goblins, like I do remember playing it, but I seriously doubt I ever beat it because there was other games because I didn't have to play this one.
So why don't these money-hungry games make us feel the same way as modern money-hungry games? Well, it's because the trade of money for game was simple, and there was nothing insidious about the transaction itself. You knew what you were giving, and you knew what you were getting. And if you were to break down the design time of a game into a pie chart...
Yeah, and when the arcade era kind of moved to the console era, games got a lot easier because there was no more incentive to make it harder on the developer end. Because otherwise, if they just made arcade games easy, then they wouldn't make any money either.
At that point, it might look something like...
You play a quarter and you beat the whole game. Like, you're not going to make any money that way.
This story, graphics, narrative connections between them, mechanics, marketing, playtesting, and then how much a go at the arcade costs. There was a lot going on in the development of a game at these times, but it's all focused on making a game good, because at that time, good games make the most money. When a company discovered a successful game, they couldn't just augment the original with downloadable content or extra levels, because that technology didn't exist yet. They'd have to make a complete sequel, and so gamers got more games. Jump forward to the mid-1990s, the home console market had taken off. You buy a console, you buy a game, and you play that game. Now, the whole lives mechanic in games at this time was a holdover from the arcade design space and wasn't actually needed in home consoles, because you didn't need the player to put more money in. Dying when you have 3 lives, then restarting from your last save, or just dying and restarting from the save anyway with no arbitrary life limit was functionally the same thing, but design moves slowly. Away from the arcade model, you no longer paid per play, and you now paid per game, and you then played as much as you wanted. Games were expensive, of course, but when you bought a game, it was complete. If it shipped with bugs, it would just have bugs forever. If it shipped with secret unlockable stuff, it would have that forever. When you own
That wasn't always the case. There were rare cases where they would release like a different version of the game at a later date. I can't quite recall when that happened, but I'm like pretty sure that happened a few times. Like it's like vague memories.
Owned the game, you owned the ability to play as much as you want of the complete experience. And this was a very simple and fair transaction. While the arcade was, here's a game, pay us to have a go, the console was, here's a game, pay us to keep it and play it whenever. But the home gaming scene wasn't just consoles, it was also PCs. Now, back then PC gaming wasn't as mainstream as it is today, but it did come with one major advantage. Because the PC held a load of data files on its hard drive instead of just reading them from the disk or cart like a console, developers could create additional content for a game and sell that. Like the incredible RPG Baldur's Gate, releasing in 1998, and then the multi-hour-long expansion Tales of the Sword Coast in 1999. This was a time in gaming where developers could develop additional content, but
I don't think I played the original Baldur's Gate. I think I played the second one.
when they did, it was usually a lot of content. PC games saw expansion after expansion, Morrowind seeing the Tribunal and Blood Moon expansions, Diablo 2, then the Lord of Destruction expansion, and all the extra modules for Neverwinter Nights. This was additional content for a game without being a sequel, but again, gamers didn't hate this because the transaction was very simple to understand and it felt fair. You gave them money, you got an experience designed to be the most fun it could possibly be. The biggest difference in this era is there's no trickery. You're not
I don't know
being
about that.
manipulated. It's just
There was a lot of crap games that came out also, so
straight up understandable product. If we again take the idea of breaking down game development time into a pie chart, you've probably got a few new bits to the pie by now. Magazine adverts and articles, some TV ads, and the arcade price replaced with a box price. But it is still mostly make a good game and you will make good money. Then in 2004, online gaming really started to kick off, with World of Warcraft being released, but Blizzard aren't the bad guys in this story, at least not yet. For now, we need to look to the east, to another popular online game.
I mean, Blizzard did follow that creed, make a good game, you know, like a lot of the early Blizzard games were amazing, and when World of Warcraft came out, it was just like a whole new level compared to the other MMOs at that time.
From Korea called MapleStory. Now in Japan, the small toy capsules
To be fair though, MapleStory for its time is actually really good. It was a lot of fun. Like the sprites for your attacks and stuff were actually cool. Like,
Gachapon had been popular for years. You put money into a Gachapon machine and get a random toy of varying rarity. These systems appeal to people who like collecting things and people who like random
yeah, but not a lot of people use the Gachapon system because it was a free-to-play game, so I think most people just played it for free. Because it was, like, let's be fair, it's a kid's game.
Chance or mystery. It's
Just look at
basically
it.
gambling on a rather inconsequential level, but the psychology behind it is very, very powerful. So MapleStory introduced an in-game Gachapon-style system.
I mean, to be fair, who did it first? Pokemon. Like, with the card packs. Like, it made a ton of money. Like, I still remember some of the adults who my brothers grew up with. Like, they became borderline millionaires. Like, taking advantage of the Pokemon trading packs.
100 yen got you a ticket for a random in-game item, and many people consider this to be the first example of a random loot box. But more importantly, this was the first moment in mainstream video games where you could pay money and not know what you were getting. You were no longer paying for the
Really?
game or for an established product, you were paying for the mystery, the ephemeral moment of what if between purchase and eventual prize. And this system made a lot of money, because MapleStory was online, and
Yeah, but like I said, I think they took it from Pokemon.
other people could see what you won. So it was no longer about having the game and enjoying the
You could see what people won if they won something like crazy rare. But majority of the time you couldn't see
game.
it.
It was now about a sense of community and prestige when you have something somebody else doesn't. If you make your game multiplayer,
That was really smart of them.
competition amongst players becomes a thing, and there are a subset of players who enjoy being seen as the person with the best stuff. And unlike real gachapon machines, which were either a physical distance to travel to or had a queue by them or sometimes just sold out, virtual gachapon tickets were unlimited, entirely within the company's control, and could be bought constantly. MapleStory already had the in-game items made, so they were selling the excitement of chance, and they were tapping into the collector and completionist mentality of many hardcore gamers. So game developers began to see they didn't actually need to sell a gaming experience anymore. They could instead sell the small adrenaline spike of potential. This was a turning point, a moment investors realised it was completely worthwhile to dedicate at least some game development time, not to the game itself, but to systems within the game designed simply to extract money from the player after they had started playing, but without giving them a complete new game. This is the first part of the puzzle for where we are today. So let's put this idea of sell random chance into a little box. A box of all the design tricks which don't favour the player or make the game necessarily any better. A box of design tricks which don't make you think, oh my god, this is amazing, I need to tell all my friends, but instead use the game as a simple vehicle for additional monetization. Now,
If I had to guess, I mean, obviously the main one would be loot boxes, but right behind that would be cosmetics, and even cosmetics that increase your power, like pay to win stuff. You also have the pay to proceed. You have the pay to not wait is a big one. I think that's probably the biggest one. Is basically like energy systems or making something build quicker, like instant building.
Now, the techniques in this box are not games themselves. They cannot exist on their own. They aren't symbiotic with a game because they don't
Parasitic.
enhance each other. They are parasitic because they
Yep.
need the game to survive but don't necessarily improve it. We'll call this box Abusive Monetization Strategies, or from a more catchy title, Pandora's Box of Bad Design. The main danger of this box is
I don't know if I agree with that, Pendo. It's not a bad design, it's a greedy design. Because it's not like it's dumb or silly. It's for greed.
if we were to take the pie chart of game development time now, knowing that this box exists and knowing the techniques inside it can make a decent amount of money, the finance people know they need to find space for the techniques within this box somewhere on the pie chart.
Yeah, it makes too much money to ignore. Like honestly, if you were gonna make a game, like you, a gamer, you're gonna pour all your time into this because making a game is not easy. At at any level, it's not really easy. Whether it's the story, game design itself, like the mechanics, um, putting the levels together, like all that stuff, like is hard work. Um, would you not look into like, okay, well, I put in all this work, and there's these game like things we can add to it that will just possibly make us like a ton of money. Why wouldn't you? Maybe on like a moral high ground standpoint kind of thing, but how many people are willing to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars for their morals? It's a very rare individual.
Which means something else
And that's like if you're alone. Like most games aren't made by one person.
must lose out. Jump forward 2 years to 2006. The Western gaming market hasn't yet discovered the mass appeal and psychological dominance that loot boxes have, but they have discovered something just as important. Gamers will pay money to look different. And it all kicks off with this.
Not just different, cool. It has to be cool. If it's different for different sake, it's not going to sell.
Stupid horse. Now, I've made a complete video
I mean, for its time, it was pretty cool.
on the history of this horse, but the short story is
Obviously, looking at it now, it looks like garbage, but like back then, it wasn't bad. It was a pretty cool mount.
Elder Scrolls Oblivion was a great game with some great DLC, Knights of the Nine and the Shivering Isles. But you could also pay a few dollars to give your horse armor. Now, it's important to understand this is completely cosmetic. It doesn't actually make your horse any better in combat or defend it, but you can buy it.
What is wrong with his head? Like, what the heck? What's funny is I tried to get into Oblivion. What was I playing? I think it was Morrowind. And then I tried to get into Oblivion. Was it Oblivion? I could be like getting these names wrong. Sometimes they kind of mix up in my head. But it's the one where like you got Potato Face. Like it really killed the game for me. I couldn't get into it. I'm wondering if this is it, because his head looks all kinds of wrong.
And people did. In fact, a lot of people bought it, and this highlighted another thing. Making a game takes a long time, but once the main game is made, the development time it would take to make a cosmetic for that game is relatively short. And that cosmetic can be sold for a small amount of money, but it can be sold many, many times. The cost is micro, but the sales volume is high. Hence microtransaction. Separate from the idea of a complete expansion, which would expand a game and make the game experience bigger,
I hate these kind of games where it's like, it feels like the like 90% of the game is behind like a crazy amount of paywalls.
Adds hardly anything beyond the original experience. It's almost inconsequential, but it's not free. So now developers know expansions are a bit risky, but microtransactions are very safe and very small.
Yeah, because if it's not received well with the microtransaction, all you lose is a bit of like 1 or 2 developers' time from like maybe a few days at most. While expansions, you're looking at possibly dozens of developers, and all the pay they got as just no return for it. Because it's also word of mouth, where if an expansion is kind of crap, like no one's gonna buy it.
Even if they don't sell, it's not a great waste of developer time. So the focus shifted away from selling a main game with lots of expansions to selling the main game and then lots and lots and lots and lots of small additional things. The problem with this is now developers had a vested interest in keeping the coolest cosmetics or the most fun little things out of the base game and instead releasing them as additional microtransactions, which is something we'll see happen more and more. And this
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, it's more great than bad, because it's like, you see the game, and you're like, oh, this sword looks really cool, they have to do this to get it. Yeah, but we could also make a few, maybe another 10,000, 15,000 plus dollars if we let them also have the option to just pay $2 for it.
This absolutely does not favor the player, because it leads to an experience where you as a player, even though you have bought the game, when you sit down to play it, you do not feel like you have access to the whole game, because you don't. It used to be you bought a game and got a game. Now it's you buy a game and you get the main framework, which you need to pay more to flesh out. So let's add sell small additions to your game as microtransactions to the box of abusive monetization strategy.
It's almost like you buy a bike, but it doesn't come with like any handlebars or that seat. It has wheels so it can move, but it's not a pleasant experience.
And as the box grows, so does the space it would need to take up on the game development pie. Now we head into 2009 to the rise of Facebook and one of the cornerstones of casual gaming and monetization progression, Farmville. Farmville was everywhere in the late 2000s, made by Zynga, and these guys were masters because Facebook was everywhere. Everyone was on it, and even non-gamers were gaming, which sounds great. But they were burning through the game too quickly. They were enjoying it and then just moving on, which was not great because Facebook is all about retention. So Farmville did something really counterintuitive to increase player retention. They gave you daily energy so you couldn't progress more than a certain amount every day. Now these games were mostly played by people on phones and laptops, and people got bored pretty quickly. And one of the best ways to prevent boredom is to limit your time with something.
Yeah. And that to me is honestly, that's the design I probably hate the most, is energy. Ones that like you have to pay for energy.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, as they say. So energy systems limiting what actions you could take, or timers connected to growing your crops or building things and you couldn't progress them quicker. By making the player progress only in short but intense bursts and then wait for their next fix of game, you either force them to pay more money to gain more energy or to skip the timers, or you make them return tomorrow. And this is game design focused on the formation of daily habits. The psychological power of the habit has been studied for years. Motivational speakers talk about them, self-help books push them, and now gaming companies were looking to use them as a way to turn players into users. Because it wasn't just about the game being fun anymore. The focus wasn't on giving the player the best experience you could give them and letting the player enjoy it at their own pace. The focus was about the game being effective at encouraging a specific behavior response from the user.
And that is definitely true. I think, though, I think one of the problems, though, with that is like it's a case where on a base by base basis, I feel like I said that really weird, but anyways, it's gonna base on the individual. Like for example, like I got burnt out of it on I forget what mobile game I was playing. I think it was like a Star Wars game or something. And now, like if a game has it, I just will not play because it's an endless pit. Once you realize that's an endless pit you will never get out of, no matter how much money you pour into it, there's always going to be more. It's like if you had a car that was just like always breaking down. Eventually, you're gonna like, F this car. I'm just getting a new car. F it, throw it away. I don't want anything to do with this car ever again.
Encouraging the user to return day after day is habit forming. Someone who plays your game habitually is more likely to remain playing even after the game itself has stopped being enjoyable. They're just continuing the habit. Along with this, game designers knew you would also have friends on Facebook that may not be playing the game, and they wanted those friends to play the game, which is why they put the mechanics in the game of share this achievement with your friend to get bonuses and get boosts. A huge amount of people began playing Facebook games not because they thought they would be the type of game they enjoy, but because they were doing their friend a favor by starting up. They were supporting their farm. They were joining their mafia. And just like MapleStory's gacha being viewed by the players in the game, you could share the progress of your farm. You could show off how far along you were, which spurred competition. So we can add limiting progression per day and encouraging you to invite your friends to start the game to give yourself advantages, or the ability to share your progression with the community, which
I don't think that should be put into the that box, because there's nothing really wrong with those mechanics in and of themselves. The problem is when they're what's the word I'm looking for? When they're implemented specifically to generate more money. Like to me, there's nothing wrong with like a recruit a friend thing, or like you sharing achievements with friends. Like all those things are fine. It's more like when you benefit from. No, actually, I think that's fine also. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that system. It just, to me, feels okay. Like you want your friends to play the same game as you. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's because this game is pay to win as hell. That's when the issue runs, because it's a crap game that's pay to win, and you getting your friends into it, you're now like sharing your drugs with them. They're going to be addicted. So in that sense, it's bad. But that's like saying sharing a pizza with someone is bad. Like, no. If you're sharing your heroin with someone with a friend, that's terrible. But like sharing a drink, sharing food, like none of that's bad.
Which is why achievements on almost all consoles and PCs are publicly viewable. Into the box of abusive monetization strategies. And while habitually playing something isn't generating money in itself, it does keep the audience around longer so they can be exposed to other, more successful strategies. Now, some people will point out that paying to advance more or paying to skip timers is in some ways similar to the old arcade process of dying and then putting more coins in to continue. And it is similar, but there is a crucial difference. With an arcade game, you could, in theory, finish the game entirely on skill. These timers and energy bars.
I think that's why the energy-based system is like, to me, one of the. I don't know which one I hate most, that one or the loot boxes. I honestly think energy, like it's because there's nothing you can do. Loot boxes, you can literally like If you want to spend enough time, you can just keep going at it. But with energy, it's like you're done for that day. Nothing you do will change it unless you spend money.
In games such as Farmville cannot ever be finished on skill
Excuse
alone,
me.
because you will hit a wall that you will need to either wait for or pay to remove. But this wasn't everything.
Yep.
Nowhere near. Farmville had other strategies.
Oh,
You had
sorry.
timers and you could pay to make them progress faster, but not with money directly. Now you had to convert real money into a proprietary currency.
I think this should be illegal. I don't think games should have like their own currency in a game. Like it's just like maybe that's like a weird take, but it's like I feel like that is one of the biggest problems. I think any game that does that should automatically be categorized as gambling. Maybe not automatically. That might be too harsh, but it's like I just feel like that is the like almost the standard for any casino is like the chips. That's why casinos have chips, specifically so that when you put down a $100 chip, like it has the 100 on it, it looks nothing like an actual 100. Like so you don't feel like you're actually betting with 100 because it doesn't feel like real money.
In this case, farm bucks. And this is one of the most prevalent designs we still see used, because it does several psychological things disgustingly well. If you can buy something directly from a game, you can see the cost in a currency that you understand. But if the game displays items in their own proprietary currency, such as gems or coins or platinum or farm bucks or whatever they want to call it, you have to make one mental step converting the currency from what you understand to what you don't understand. So all these things are now one mental step away from having real value, and that is hugely important.
And what a lot of times what they do is they also have it where it comes in different packages so that the pricing is a little bit different. So say you had 100 for $1, but then you buy $5 and you get like 600, 700 or whatever it is, and so forth and so forth. That will trick your mind into it will distort the actual cost that you're actually spending. Like it kind of tricks you into thinking uh, like 100 is actually not $1. Maybe it's like 50 cents because you saw the $100 one giving like all the bonuses.
Because even one step is further than most people are willing to go. So let's add that into the box. Proprietary in-game premium currency to obscure real-world
Definitely should go in the
by
box.
a single step. Bonus points if it makes you convert the currency to multiple other in-game currencies, which is almost completely impossible to track in your own mind. So you need to buy the currency. And this is the next trick. The currency is usually sold in packs, and these packs are specifically sized to either be just under what you actually need or very, very close to the next best thing.
Yeah, that's super frustrating. And that to me is like one of the red signs if I'm playing a game and it does stuff like that. Like maybe because I worked in a casino for a while, I'm like, I really try to pay attention to stuff that is just trying to scam me of my money.
Making you consider the next pack up. For example, if you need 100 gems to buy something in the game and gem packs are sold in packs of 90 or 205, you may as well buy the 205 pack.
Exactly.
But then there's a really good item in the game for 210, and you're only 5 gems short. But the next pack contains 500 gems. But there's a mega item for 505 gems, and you're only 5 gems shy of that now.
Yeah, you basically convince them from going to this and just maybe purchasing this to by having all this like all together, like they're gonna now get this and this. So you just had a person who was probably just gonna pay. I mean, if this was 100, just the $1 now is paying about $6.
Now, you're not thinking about the number 505, you're thinking it's only 5 and then only another 5. Much smaller jumps for much higher jumps in value. You'd be a fool if you didn't take them, right? So that's going in the box of bad design. But let's say you do buy a pack. Whatever pack you buy, you will spend your unique in-game proprietary currency, but then you'll
Yeah, this was also kind of like best value.
discover something else. The currency is non-refundable, and it is almost impossible to spend all of it. You'll always be left with some random number, like 4 gems or 2 bits of platinum. It's never 0. And this will bother you, because in your mind, that's a waste, and you don't like waste. And if you don't spend that currency, then the game is keeping it, and you've paid for that. But the only way to make this useful is to buy another currency pack. I mean, you'd be a fool if you didn't do that, right? You can't have premium currency just sitting there in strange, unspendable amounts. It's annoying.
I actually didn't think about that. That's a really good, wow, I can't even think right now. Probably need some food in me. It's whatever. Point. That's wow. I can't believe I forgot that. Okay, so yeah, that's a really great point. I didn't even. It really makes sense though. Yeah, man.
annoying, and it's by design. So add that to the box. But maybe you know all this, and you're not a fool. You won't spend a lot, you'll wait for a sale, but oh look, you're a brand new player and there's an offer. A load of
Yeah, I mean Diablo Immortal. Like everything I saw in it, I was like, man, they are geniuses. Like they must have people who work in a casino or who have studied like both the casino, the trading card game, and then mobile in general. Like it it's perfect when it comes to how to squeeze every nickel and dime out of its player base.
premium currency, a boost, a few cosmetics. It's a limited time
It's
offer,
impressive
and
in
it's
its
all for
own
a low
right.
price of just under $1. Now,
And yet I will never touch the game, but it is impressive to the level of degree that they um, monetize that game
you'd definitely be a fool if you didn't buy this.
and all the psychological tricks they apply to it.
If you've ever wondered why the intro packs to almost any game are such good value, it's because studies have shown people who buy a single purchase are much, much more likely to make another purchase. So you want to make the
Yes,
first purchase really enticing. And it's because some phones need you to authorize in-app
it's also why they the term gateway drug. Like if they can get you using even a soft drug, like that automatic like you're 10 times more likely to do hard drugs just by doing a soft drug
purchases. But once you
compared to someone who didn't.
have authorized one, it will not double check for any extra purchases. So you confirm that you want to buy the cheap pack, and then it doesn't double check for the expensive packs, because every screen between the player and a purchase is a moment they could doubt and reconsider. So you want to get those, are you sure you want to purchase this, checks, agreed with, and out the way early. Unusually cheap intro microtransactions just to get you into a habit. Let's add that to the box. And while the box is looking pretty anti-player and anti-consumer so far, it's nowhere near full. To truly see how effective this ugly design can be, we only need to go forward 1 year to 2010 and look at FIFA's Ultimate Team mode. Now I'm
Yeah, this was like, and what's another thing that came out outside of gaming, that I think actually came from gaming monetization was fantasy leagues, like a lot, like the like websites and stuff like that. Like I'm, I would bet money that that's where the idea came from.
not really into football games, but the FIFA franchise of games actually highlights the game design shift really well. It shows how games have moved from being a fun experience by themselves to a fun enough framework that other monetization tactics will cling to like limpets. In FIFA, you can buy loot boxes, which contain random cards of players, and use these to build up your ultimate team. The
I mean, it's like I said, Pokemon and stuff. Like they were doing this long before that.
Ultimate Team mode takes several of the box ideas and combines them, and now the Ultimate Team mode makes more money than the box sales of FIFA itself. In fact, since 2018, FIFA Ultimate Team has generated over $1 billion in revenue per year for EA. In 2021, they made 1.6 billion, and it happens every single year. And the cards you buy in the Ultimate Team for 1 year can
I mean, it's also like if anyone ever goes to a casino, um, they're not small, they're huge. They are usually beautiful, have a lot of stuff in them that look amazing. Where do you think all that money came from? Why would they invest all of this in this place?
not be used in the next year, meaning the microtransactions now have a shelf life. Horse armor may last forever, but what if it didn't? What if you could make a player pay for it again and again every year? Let's add that to the box. Yearly repeating microtransactions.
Yeah, I mean that's why they come out with a new FIFA or sports game every year, pretty much.
Now, as a developer, you'd look at this
While the game itself doesn't
box and
change.
think, wow, selling my game isn't the profitable thing anymore. It's what I can sell within the game. By now, the box of abusive monetization strategies is so big, it's almost impossible to ignore if you are making a game. 1 year later, in 2011, the MMORPG RuneScape is suffering. They had a major update to the combat system, which a huge majority of the player base hated, and this made them lose a lot of players. This is a mistake worthy of its own video, but the bottom line is, they are a monthly subscription game losing subscribing players, and they need to find a way to either recover paying members or to stem the tide of people leaving. Enter the loyalty program. Every month of membership, you now earn loyalty points, and you earn more for every consecutive month that you remain subscribed. And then you can spend loyalty points on cool exclusive cosmetics or mechanically powerful auras and boosts.
That is interesting. Is that a bad thing? That's a different question.
So now, cancelling your membership wasn't just a case of thinking, I'm not enjoying the game, so I won't pay, which is a very simple, understandable, fair transaction. It's now a case of thinking, I'm not enjoying the game, but if I unsubscribe, I break my loyalty streak and will earn far fewer loyalty points over the long run, which will put me at a disadvantage if I ever do want to come back in the future, which...
I see. Okay. That part about it, yeah, I can definitely agree that was bad. Or, greedy. I I think I would be okay with it more if there was no streak bonus or anything like that.
which is not as fair. The transaction used to be simple, but now we're putting the player in the position of give money even if you don't want to play because you don't want to break a habit. That's going in the box. And by now the box is demanding a bigger and bigger slice of the game design pie chart. 2 years later, 2013 sees the release of Dead Space 3, the third installment in a terrific horror trilogy. Well, sort of. While Dead Space 1 and 2
I think TV ads also on that pie chart should be shrinking as well. I think most people get their trailers not from the TV anymore.
2 were indeed terrific horror games with tension and pacing and balanced gameplay and great stories, Dead Space 3 did something strange. It took the idea of you being a lone engineer trapped on an infested spaceship, struggling against incredible odds, using only your small collection of mining tools and very limited ammunition to survive, and it added in the ability to let you buy in-game guns with real cash from the cash shop. A horror
I did not know
survival
that.
game selling you in-game guns and ammo. Complete
I played this. I don't maybe because I don't really look at the shop when it if possible I'll try to stay away from the shops. I didn't had no idea.
completely
That's
defeating
awful.
the atmosphere and vibe the game was going for.
It's like
Selling
Resident
players
Evil
things they
doing
can
that.
use within your game to make the
So
game
dumb.
easier. Let's add that to the box. That's effectively selling power. This one manages to out-monetize even the
Pay to win.
arcade. It would be like putting more coins into Time Crisis and getting a rocket launcher, or removing the time limit in Crazy Taxi. It sort of defeats the purpose of the original game. Along with Dead Space selling guns, we now see the MOBA game Dota 2 release what many consider the first major Battle Pass system. Now, when this craze started, I remember walking into gaming shops and seeing the phrase
I may be alone, but I actually don't mind the battle passes too much, as long as they're not like crazy. Only because and usually when I run into it, it's on free-to-play games, so I just see it as a subscription.
Battle Pass everywhere, and I had no idea
Like a
what they
voluntary
were.
subscription.
Effectively, they are optional purchases which unlock a series of challenges or processes you can go through to unlock more stuff in the game, but they are time sensitive. So you buy the monthly Battle Pass, and if you play a certain number of hours, or kill a certain number of enemies, or achieve a certain number of whatever it wants you to do, you can advance along the Battle Pass and unlock new stuff. Now, you could just have the unlockable stuff be available for everyone to unlock anyway, but by limiting it to a timed battle pass, you're doing a few manipulative things. You're creating a fear of missing out, or FOMO, as players know if they don't have this month's battle pass, they may never get the full experience or that rare cosmetic ever again. So
With that, I think though that could be almost anything, right? Like, if you're not playing the game when like a new raid hits, you get FOMO because you weren't there. I don't know if it's hard to say. Maybe because I personally don't get FOMO a lot of times. Like, it's rare that FOMO affects me. That it's hard for me to see it. I'm not
So
sure.
you are encouraging an unhealthy amount of gameplay, because if you're not advancing your battle pass, you're losing precious time. So now you're actually discouraging players from enjoying any other game and forcing them to focus entirely on progression within yours.
I don't think it's that wrong to have incentives to play a game, like your game. I'm trying to think here, because like technically you can say that about any subscription ever. Like, you paid money, you don't want to waste your money, so therefore I should play the game every day. That would work there. I mean, it also work with box prices. Well, I paid $60 for this game. I'm not even really playing it. I only played it for a day. I should play it every day because otherwise I'm wasting my money. Like, I don't know. Like I think that works with any time you're spending money in on the game to play, like whether box subscription doesn't matter.
This design is, of course, at odds with the limit playtime technique because
Maybe the issue is like the unlocking things with it. I'm not sure.
they appeal to
Though to be fair, a lot of at least the battle passes I've run into, it's not like you get uniques out of it.
different demographics. Remember, a battle pass or limited time
Usually, like I said, I don't mind it in like free to play games or like even some games that are box price games. Because as I said, I see it as like a subscription, and a lot of times that is kind of how they're treated. Like you do get the battle pass, and most things you would do anyways is now going to reward you extra, like things that from the shop, like the shop currency or whatever it is, or things you can get like buy from the shop.
progression track doesn't always actively improve a game, but it does always increase that game's revenue, so throw it in the box. By now, even
Doesn't always improve the game. I don't think that's true because if take away the actual money part of it, and it was just a battle pass, that does improve the game. Like you're putting little goals for people to achieve to play the game, giving them incentives to do those goals. So I mean, I kind of disagree, but I do see where he's coming from.
the concept of a fun, well-made game is starting to look like a horrifically augmented shadow of its former self. Imagine what a well-made game would look like if you tried to shoehorn in all of the techniques in this box. And unfortunately, eventually, you won't need to imagine. We're seeing it more and more. Later that same year, one of my favourite games comes out, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, a fantastic pirate game. There's just one problem. Unless you own both a PlayStation and an Xbox and are willing to buy 2 copies of the game, you can never experience the full game. Black
Yeah, when games do that, it's literally so stupid.
Flag featured console exclusive levels, which not only
Yeah,
fueled the petty console wars, but also highlighted the fact that marketing executives were now powerful enough to tell games developers exactly what their players deserved, or more importantly, what their non-players don't deserve. This is not player-focused design at all. And while I completely understand the power of console exclusives, when I walked into a game shop and picked up 2 copies of Black Flag and realised no matter what I choose, there is a mission I won't get to play because I don't have the right console, that didn't leave a good taste in my mouth. So while Dota may have started the Battle Pass idea, it was almost perfected 4 years later in 2017 by Fortnite Season 2, which replaced the Season shop with a Battle Pass system. And then later in November of 2017, we witness a bit of gaming history, and it fills us all with a sense of pride and accomplishment. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was an amazing game which released back in 2005, not to be confused
absolutely
with Star Wars
great game.
Battlefront 2, which was a mediocre game which released in 2017. It was a full-priced game and yet also had a loot box system in it along with premium currency system. This led to a Reddit user complaining that even though they'd bought the $80 deluxe version of the game, they still couldn't play as Darth Vader from day one. Unlocking Darth Vader means buying his hero crate, which costs 60,000 in-game credits, or you can spend real money. Now, you
Yeah, I'm glad that game flopped. Like that, it was all like terrible. Unfortunately, it didn't. Like if they released it on mobile, like that game would have blown up.
can earn an average of 250 credits per 10-minute match at the time, so you'd have to grind for roughly 40 hours of constant gameplay, longer than the average completion time of most video games, to unlock a single rare character. Or you could pay crystals in the premium shop and spend those on hero crates and just hope. EA responded to this Reddit complaint saying the reason crates were so expensive or take so long to unlock is to give a sense of pride and accomplishment to players who did manage to unlock them. This becomes the most downvoted comment in Reddit history. So, locking premium parts of your full-priced game behind either hours of grind or spending
Yeah, that probably was literally one of the worst things you could say when you could just buy it.
even more money to unlock the cool stuff before other people who bought the same game as you. Now, it's important to understand that games having things locked within them is not necessarily bad design. One of my favourite games of all time is SSX Tricky, the snowboarding game. And as you play through
That's a
that,
really
you
good
unlock
game.
new characters, new boards, and new tracks. Progression within a game and rewarding that progression with new mechanics, new characters, and new areas is not bad. The problem was
Yeah, Tony Hawk did a really good job with that too.
Progression wasn't the only way to unlock this. You could simply pay more money to get it immediately. And because it was a competitive game, people who paid the extra money were at an advantage over those who did not. This is a video about how newer games feel.
Yeah, I kind of talked about that early on. Is that competitive games like Call of Duty and stuff, they don't really have pay to win mechanics that I know of. I could be wrong, um, because when you make the playing field unfair in a competitive game, like there's just fewer people who are going to want to play it.
Wrong. And it feels wrong to buy the same game as someone else and to know that they will have an advantage over you if they pay more. Throw that in the box of abusive monetization. Why not? It's going to work. And then 5 years later, Diablo Immortal happened. Now, I've already covered Diablo Immortal pretty extensively in the video The Diabolically Immoral Diablo Immortal and its follow-up about the legendary crests, because it took basically every idea from the big box of abusive monetization and sprinkled them liberally over a somewhat Diablo-looking game, including multiple premium currencies, a deliberately similar in-game item which functions slightly differently to a paid version of the same thing, and multiple battle passes all called different things. But don't worry, because everyone assured me that Diablo Immortal was a mobile game, and thus would not be representative of the actual next Diablo game, which would be Diablo 4. Everyone told me Diablo 4 would be a full game by itself, with no cash shop, with gameplay first, and none of the strategies from the big box of badness. So of course
They
there are various
announced a
digital
battle
versions
pass.
of the game, the more expensive ones giving you an accelerated battle pass bonus, allowing you to progress quicker, and there is a cosmetic cash shop using its own proprietary currency. And if you're thinking Diablo doesn't need all these extra bells and whistles to be...
Yeah, I mean, I plan to play Diablo 4, but if it's like, if I keep finding like immortal like mechanics, Diablo immortal mechanics, I doubt the game's gonna go anywhere. It's like when they released the auction house and reduced the drop rate of legendaries to like nothing. Like the game basically almost died like when it was released.
a good Diablo game, you are correct. These have not been added because they make the game better, they've been added because they make the game money. And then Darktide released, which is a full price game with an abusively priced cash shop, or you can grind for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to get some of the cheap things in that shop. And now we're here. So why have games become like this? Simple, because games are businesses. Games have been businesses since arcades, since consoles allowed you to buy the game and have it in your own home. They have always wanted to make money. But up until now, the best way to make the most amount of money was to make the best game you possibly could. Because
I mean, that's what I was saying earlier is like morality, like that's not going to be a stopgap for someone who wants to, for anyone. Like, okay, you can see yourself as a better person, or you can make a few $100,000. Let's be fair. Everyone's going to choose the money.
people would buy it, and that was it. The transaction was finished. It was fair. The best way to make money on modern games is to make the best framework as a holder for these strategies. And companies have experimented with various methods to increase income over the years, from gacha loot boxes to pre-orders, console exclusives to battle passes, energy systems to just straight up selling power. And instead of hiring game designers, they hired psychologists to build habits, to reinforce addictive behaviors, to design gameplay loops which encourage spending. The problem was these techniques were never about the player having fun. They were about the user being monetized. And when a marketing executive pictures you playing a game, you aren't pictured smiling and laughing with friends. You're pictured opening your wallet and reaching for your credit card, because that's their goal. And eventually, the Pandora's box of abusive monetization strategies was so full of proven, effective techniques that making a game is often no longer about the game, at least not for the people in charge of the money. The game is now simply a life support system for as many of these systems as you can design into it. The game is a host, and the parasite of monetization has begun to take over, and the unfortunate reality...
Yeah, it's the same with like slot machines and a lot of the trading card games that they try to release. Like they don't even try to hide it. Like they just want money.
The reality is this works, even with a breakout incredible success like Elden Ring, which won Game of the Year and sold over 18 million copies as of this video. At $60 a sale, that's over $1 billion in sales worldwide. That is still slightly shy of how much money Genshin Impact made this year. It is still shy of how much money FIFA Ultimate Team has made every year for the last 4 years. The reality is, when companies look at that...
Yeah, but both those games dip into multiple markets. FIFA with the sporting, like soccer is absolutely huge, um, like outside of gaming. And then Genshin Impact is the anime players or anime watchers, and that's also a huge community. Like they're both giants in their own right. So when you have a game that is like very monetization heavy, but they're the best for that community, then of course it's going to make a ton of money.
Pie chart of game development time and how they divide
I'm surprised Call of Duty like he hasn't brought that up yet either.
developer time or invested money. That big box of abusive monetization strategies, that Pandora's box of terribleness, is so effective, they would be hurting their own profit to not put at least some of the techniques in. The older
Yeah, they'd be an idiot. Like the thing is, like the only way it's ever going to stop is when it becomes legal, like regulated by the government, similar to casinos. Like casinos would look way different than they are now if they were left to their own devices. Like I can't even imagine. It would be insane.
design is simply
It's similar to gaming. Like they took everything that was already legal, card games, casinos, slot machines, sports betting, all these lessons that the were learned from gambling, and they started from there and just went further and further and further. It is not going to stop, not until it's regulated, which is sad.
have the knowledge of this box, and even if
It I say sad, but it's like it's fair. People want to make money. That's just how it is.
they did, they didn't have the technology to act on it at the time. Modern design often puts
It's like if most people, if they walk and they found like a bag of money, they're not going to look for the owner. They're like, oh, this is now my money.
the player into an awkward position where the game has spent more time focusing on the manipulative, abusive systems than it has
Like they would only be words like maybe this is money stolen and I'll get in trouble for having it. But other than that,
on just being the best game it could be. So what is the exact choice which makes games feel wrong? Is it MapleStory's fault for adding Gachapon? Is it Oblivion's
Nope.
fault for the horse armor? Is it Dota?
no, because you had the trading cards before that, and you had the those like what are those called? Like you put a quarter in and you turn it, and it gives you like a random like little like toy.
Dota's fault for the battle pass? FIFA's fault for the success of Ultimate Team? Is it Farmville's fault for mastering the addiction?
No, it's people. It's also the government regulation. I would say more government regulation than anything else, because if any of them were like in the know for this kind of stuff, it's extremely obvious that this is all gambling.
Cycle? Or is it EA's fault for locking away Darth Vader? Unfortunately, it's kind of all of them. It's just the reality of games design today. You cannot close the lid on Pandora's box. Designers can't.
You absolutely can. Eventually, I at least think so. It's more an when than an if that the governments get involved in this. They're going to treat it like gambling, exactly like it. There's going to be heavy licensing involved. There's extremely strict rules that if you don't follow, you will pay out the nose, out the ass of money. Like the fines and fees that a casino has to incur if they break regulation, like is insane. It's not anywhere near worth it. Like they are extremely strict with that kind of stuff, and they have to be.
Unknow the effectiveness of these techniques, and every game made for the rest of time has to either use them or actively choose
Yeah, it's just a matter of time, in my opinion.
to avoid them. So the exact choice that makes a game go from being the best it can possibly
Like games are going to take it further and further. Eventually, it's going to get to a point where like it's going to cause some serious issues in society, to the point that government has to take action. Otherwise, they'll get voted out.
be to anti-player or anti-consumer
Because games are becoming more and more popular, especially on the mobile market. So,
is when a designer or a marketing executive
like if I was going to make a game, it would definitely be on a mobile thing, and it would be like simple with some of those things. If it, like my point, if the the reason why I was doing it was to make money. Like, it just makes the most sense.
Stops thinking about how they can make the best game they're capable of and starts throwing some sly glances toward the box in the corner. And when they say, hey, this technique may not fit our game perfectly, but it's proven to make a lot of money. Do you think we could put it in our game? That is the moment any specific game goes downhill from what it could be from a player's perspective. And the worst part is that big evil box and all its dark design knowledge is constantly being added to. And when you play a new game and spot the cash shop and the battle pass and the premium currency and the awkward pack size and the loot boxes and the exclusive levels, and when you just feel sad.
I think another reason why I don't mind battle passes is you see the rewards before you get the battle pass. So it's like, you know what you're getting, unlike like a loot box. Like I said, I mean, I wouldn't cry any tears if they took it away. But to me, it's like, of all the things in that box, it's one I'm like the most okay with.
That the game didn't have to do that. That's when you know that the pie chart of design of this game had at least a small slice dedicated to that stupid box. A small slice focused on making the game a little bit anti-player in the name of a lot of profit. But personally, I also know it can be very cathartic to be angry at a thing instead of a concept. So let's all just collectively agree to blame the stupid horse. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch and YouTube who keep the channel alive. You can support from only...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with like buying DLC, as long as it's like not from an in-game currency, but you're seeing like the actual dollar amount. So I really like Josh Strife's videos. They're very thought-provoking and engaging. What went wrong with gaming? Yeah, I mean, it was just a matter of time. Like, there's no way it would, because it's unregulated. So eventually you'd get someone who was like, I can make money from this.